So it's in the name of this model. It's called the Cox proportional hazards model. So hazards model basically means that, the proportional means that at every point in time, the hazard ratios are the same. Time does not influence the difference in the shape of the curve. So how long people have spent in medical practice, for instance, does not influence their probability to drop out of practice. When you do your literature review, you may decide, maybe the literature and your expertise in the field may make you question that assumption and then say, wait, does it is in my experience and from everything we've learned from literature, does time influence how long people stay in medical practice? Are people, like people who practice for X number of years, are they more likely to stay on than people who practice for shorter time, or are they less likely to stay on? I don't know what the literature in that field says, but you can test your assumption. So we want to see if the assumption of the proportional hazards holds, if the hazards are actually proportional in this data set. So we can do that basically by looking for, remember, res.cox is the name of this object, right? So this is the object where we've, res.cox is the name that we chose by ourselves to run the Cox proportional hazard on these variables from the data set. Do you remember that part? So at this point, we're basically just asking for R to run the Cox.zph. So basically looking at the assumption and saying, does the assumption of proportionality hold? Remember when we had those linear regression models, how we used the plots to look at whether our assumptions were correct, whether it made sense to use a multiple linear, whether the assumptions hold and we were using the correct test, similar to this, right? So now we're going to run this. So what do you see?
A p-value which shows that we failed to reject the null hypothesis.
Okay, so we see a p-value of 0.26, which says we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. If the p-value is significant, the proportional hazards assumption does not hold. Here, the p-value is not significant, so the proportional hazard assumption holds. So what do you think was the null hypothesis here? Anyone willing to take a stab at it?
If the assumption does not hold at this p-value, then the null hypothesis is that there was no difference in the hazards in both proportions.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Thank you, Zebo.
From the model, what is assuming is that the hazards are proportional. So based on this p-value, we can conclude that the hazard of the hazard ratio between the males and females are not proportional. Therefore, and mean that sorry, time time does not influence it. That's maybe the reason of non-proportionality.
Okay, thank you very much, the two of you. So let's take it. So let's take it from first principles, right? So we want to see here. We want to see if the hypothesis of proportionality of hazards, or the assumption of proportionality of hazards, if it holds. So we're basically saying our null hypothesis is that the hazards are proportional, or the hazards are not proportional, and our alternative hypothesis is that the hazards are proportional. So we run it, and here we can see that it's 0.26, meaning that there is no significance. There is no significance, rather. So we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes, but it sounds like yes, but.
I'm still trying to.
Okay, I'm going to keep trying to think about it. I'm going to type it in the chat. Maybe it will help.
Okay.
Oh. That's significant. The assumption of proportionality does not hold. Okay. So for the assumption of proportionality to hold, it has to be not significant. So our null hypothesis is that the hazard ratios between the two groups are equal. Okay. So our null hypothesis is that the hazard ratios between the two groups are equal. It is the hypothesis of no difference. Is everybody with me? I've put it in the chat.
Yeah.
So does it make sense now?
Yeah, it does.
So our null hypothesis is that the hazard ratio between the two groups are equal. Generally, null hypothesis is usually the hypothesis of no difference. Nothing is happening here. So if we then run it and it is significant, that means we reject the null hypothesis. But if it is not significant, then we fail to reject the null hypothesis. So in this case, we fail to reject the null hypothesis and so conclude that the hazard ratios are proportional. And so it is okay to use this approach. Is it clear?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay, I am glad that you said so far, so good, because this is the end of the lab. It just tells us here we don't have any data to model that, but if the proportional hazards assumptions does not hold, then you introduce an interaction term for time in the model. And remember, from multiple linear regression, you remember how you specify the interaction term. It's just the multiplication, right? Have I confused everybody?
Please go. Can you go over it again, please?
So for this data that we have, the proportional hazards assumption holds. So we say, okay, we can use the Cox proportional hazards model to model this data. However, if you run if you test the assumption and the assumption does not hold, you can then introduce an interaction term for time in the model. Because basically the assumption, the proportional assumption is that time does not influence the difference. It does not influence the shape of the curve. So if you test that assumption and in your data is like, time does influence the shape of the curve, then what you do is to introduce an interaction term for time. You put time in the model as an interaction term.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, doing this step of testing for the assumption of proportionality is like saying, should I use an interaction term or should I not?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to we've come to the end of the of our lab time. We've run through all the stuff that we have to do, but I'm just going to sit here quietly and let you think about it, come up with questions, if there's anything, since we still have 19 minutes, if there's anything that you want us to go over again.
Okay, thank you. Hello. Hello.
Hi, I'm here.
There was this time we're having a lab with Dr. Abioye. He gave an assignment that we should try and send it to him. Then he showed us how to knit it into either Word or PDF and so on. So since then, I've been trying to knit it, but it's always display error message that I even attempted this one currently, but it was still showing the same error. So I don't know how to go about it. Like, hello?
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, like, and the problem is that I can't share my screen because I'm using my handset to do it, to be on the class and then practice it with the computer.
Okay.
So when I clicked on the knit button up there, yeah, then I chose knit word. Then it's now at the console side. It's now open. It now created another tab of render. So it was then that it shows like line 15 error, insert working directly, and so on and so on. After at the beginning, I've set my own working directly, different from that of the one that come with the RMD document. But it's still showing me that like there is an error. They couldn't locate the directory that was set on the RMD. So yes, RMD file. So I don't know how to go about that. If I want it to be set like mine, to either turn it to Word or PDF or HTML.
Huh, that's interesting. I just tried it, and can you see my Word?
Yes.
It worked successfully.
Sorry, I can't see the screen again.
Yeah. So this was my output when I selected knit to. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see the word.
Yeah. So that was my output when I selected knit to Word. Let's go back. So basically, when you select knit to Word, it tells you it cannot find your working directory.
Yes.
And do you usually set the working directory
Yeah,
before you start?
That's what I did first. And
Okay.
last time I could remember that I even deleted the one that come with the RMD to see whether it was confusing it with mine. So I don't know.
So where do you set your working directory to?
My document where I have my like I have a file RLab, so it's under start document start lab
A
start one.
file or a folder?
A folder, sorry, a
Okay.
folder, and that is where I stored everything regarding R.
And that's where your R markdown that you're using is located.
Yes.
Oh,
Can I set another one now to see whether it can work?
try it. I really don't know how to troubleshoot this. This is not something that I have, this is not a challenge that I've run into. Although I feel like if you post a message to the R community,
Okay.
there probably will be people who can help you troubleshoot it.
Okay. I'm trying to reset the working directory. So I'm running this now. I've set the working directory again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the same error message.
And you did this needs to word.
Yes, needs to word. Yeah, I did it. And can I change this niche directory? Yeah. Mine is also at the document directory.
Try not
work?
knitting it to current working directory.
Okay.
Oh, I hope that's not your computer threatening to.
It's actually my computer.
I hope it's not threatening to shut down on you.
Still, the system cannot find this the file specified. While opening the system cannot find.
So Abbas, I don't have a solution. I don't have a suggestion for you at this moment. But why don't you send me your email address? Let's try and walk through this.
Okay. I'll do so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions, comments, anything to go over? In that case, I would say thank you very much for coming to the our lab today, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Abbas, I have seen your email address.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Bye. It's better.